Good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe this lovely Friday. How do you do where you are and how hot is the coffee? 38 days to Christmas. How about that?
Merry Christmas, most definitely. And well, I'm used to Stanley Nyarungiti. It's a Friday and well, it's been quite a long and short week depending on where your week started, well, planting trees. But we definitely have to wrap up the week in style. This particular week we will be having, this particular day we'll be having the Huruma kids right here with us. Just, dancing and all that, dancing and also, even enacting what they always do. I mean, they are a big group of kids, definitely talented. So they will be here, showing us all that. So you definitely want to stick around for that. But then it's a Friday, so Matters Youth Perspective right here.
Oh yes, interesting headlines today, and we'll be digging deep to see the youth perspective on what's happening in the country. A lot has been happening, those revelations about the G2G. And to see whether or not these people feel that some of these things do affect them. Do stand by for that conversation starting at around 6:30. Meanwhile, you can continue interacting with us throughout the show on our social media pages, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya. My name is Freddy Ndimuli.
Now let's get the highlights this morning, and we begin with the Matters Corruption Purge. 6 CEOs and 67 police officers suspended for alleged involvement in corruption and procurement irregularities as government conducts its first major anti-graft purge.
Uproar over Raila Odinga's dossier on alleged corruption in the government-to-government oil purchase deal, with top government officials quick to dismiss the claims as hot air.
Meanwhile, police officers as well as officers in the NYS and prison services to get 40% pay hike, as recommended in a special task force report on reforms in the sector.
To our top story now. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Felix Koskei yesterday directed the suspension of 6 chief executive officers for alleged involvement in corruption and procurement irregularities within their respective institutions. Stanvas Ongalo, the Acting Director General, National Museums of Kenya, Benjamin Kai Chilumo, CEO Huduma Center, Peter Gitaa Koria, CEO Bomas of Kenya, and others are Anthony Wamukota, GM Design and Construction at Ketraco, as well as Esther Wanjiru, an accountant at Kera. Now, in the letters, the EACC stated that the continued stay in office of the mentioned officers during the investigation will interfere and undermine its work. Let's now get down to the dailies.
We'll definitely be taking a look at the diary even as we progress, just to take a look at how we'll be wrapping up this particular week. And well, in the dailies this particular morning, I didn't know my daughter's filthy rich is what is big on the Daily Nation, but matters still on the whole, G2G and the whole Ruto oil deals we'll be reflecting largely on quite a number of dailies this morning.
Oh yes, we start off with the Standard. Ruto oil deal a scam. That's a big headline on the Standard today. Opposition leader says the government did not enter into deals with other governments, but instead framed it that way to facilitate 3 companies to avoid paying corporate tax, a charge that he said has been passed on to consumers. He asked government to not only cancel the deal, but to make it public. That story is on page 2. There are a number of demands. Cancel the deal, ESCC to probe the same, officials to be sacked, government to restore the 8% tax break, government to come clean on the deal, and to open the deal to the public. And a photo there of the opposition leader Raila Odinga was in the media, the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation in Nairobi yesterday. That's a big story today. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard. Let's start from the bottom. No feast for Mwangaza yet. Meru governor says she is ready for the dissolution of the county. A day after MCS said they will impeach her cabinet. That story is on page 10. Elsewhere, ex-roads boss to forfeit 500 million shillings. A former senior manager of the Rural Roads Authority will surrender property worth $500 million. Court said was proceeds of graft. And on Anjeri, gaps emerging 17 billion shilling petrol deal saga. Reports show tonnage of oil government ordered and water supplied to be inconsistent. Energy CS also claims trader was not licensed. To the top strip of the Standard this Friday now. Government to spend 187 billion shillings more. MPs yesterday called out state officials for their role in budget making after the supplementary budget was increased. 187 billion shillings when things are this rough. How about that? On the economic stability, Kenya inks 100 billion shilling loan deal. That's on page 4. And you know, it's almost getting comical. The fact that we're still borrowing. I've seen another story somewhere where our debt has gone beyond 10 trillion shillings. And it was only 8-point-something trillion last September. So we've gone up by over 2 trillion shillings in a matter of 1 year.
Interesting. And, I'm just assuming that now that the president said he has made around 2 trillion shillings of with the foreign trips that he has made, why don't you just use that money too?
The math is bad.
The math is bad.
However, the front page of Business Daily shows, IMF rescuing Kenya from 300 billion Eurobond scare. So as much as, there's that whole debt, but then now there's IMF, so.
IMF only gives you loans,
yes.
They rarely give you free money. And that's a problem. It may be written as a salvation. They may call it whatever they do, but IMF rarely gives you free money. Yeah. The back page of the Standard, classics where drama reigned and pain. Too much to bear. Chelsea 4-4 draw with City was quite simply a classic. This is just a review of the ongoing games in the English Premier League. And for lovers of the Premier League, you can turn to the back page of the Standard for more details on that. That's the Standard today.
Let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning. And a similar headline there, Raila wants G2G fuel deal scrapped. And opposition chief Raila Odinga now demands the cancellation and investigation of controversial deal, saying it is designed to protect 3 local oil companies from paying 30% corporate tax. The National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, on the other side, dismisses Mr. Odinga's claims as hot air and political propaganda. That is the story on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. And just at a glance, the G2G, Mr. Odinga claims that the deal is not a government-to-government one, but one entered with state-owned petroleum companies in the Middle East. And on taxes, the deal was meant to protect Gulf Energy, Galana Oil Kenya Limited, and Oryx Energies Kenya Limited from paying 30% corporate tax, says the Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Also, Azimio leader alleges the oil deal has failed to address any of the problem that President William Ruto said it would when he launched it in March. Yes, and that is a big story on the Daily Nation this morning. Another story given prominence on the Daily Nation. I didn't know my daughter is filthy rich. And now, concerning that interesting story there of the fuel saga of the businesswoman Anne Njoroge. The Pauline Wanjiru Njoroge, the mother of the businesswoman Anne Njeri, who has been in the headlines over the contested ownership of a 17 billion oil shipment, says she is surprised to learn that her firstborn daughter is that rich. The last time she saw her daughter was close to 6 years ago, and Miss Wanjiru is 71 now, says has only been communicating with her daughter on phone, and the last time they talked was nearly 4 months ago. Yes, and that is the story on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. The lower strip of the Daily Nation, Grafton Ruto sends home 5 CEOs in the purge, and pictured there the CEO for Tana Waterworks Development Agency, Frederick Mwamati, Stephen Ogenga, the director of NITA, is Stanvas Ongalo, the acting director general, National Museums of Kenya, and Benjamin Kai Chilumo, the CEO of Huduma Center Secretariat, and Peter Gitar, who is the CEO and the general manager of the Bomas of Kenya. Yes, and on the right strip, 21 years recruitment age for police, prison, and NOS officers if proposals by Maraga team are adopted, and the police are set for 40% pay rise in the radical reforms. And on the Voice pullout this Friday, the women politicians making a mark, and pictured there Gladys Wanga of Homa Bay. There's also Honorable Esuda. There's also Honorable Njeri Maina, among others. Looking at what we have on the back page of the Daily Nation, 100 top police officers lead Haiti peace mission. And yes, that is concerning that specific debate that was the National Assembly yesterday. Away from that, Kenya Power now blames a transformer vandalism for national power outages. And in matter sports, moment of truth for Kenya's rising starlets as they face Cameroon in a must-win Women's U20 World Cup qualifying match at Nyayo today afternoon.
Mm-hmm. And even as we close to Taifa Leo, speaking of matches, the World Cup, the whole qualifiers World Cup, reminds me we were beaten by Gabon yesterday.
Oh, yes.
2-1. But we scored the first ones. But kwanza siku, Waswahili wasemaje, kwanza mapema siku fika mapema.
Tumeambwa tena.
Kimeumana.
Kimeumana tena. You know.
Right, ni bonge.
90.
Yes, okay. Ni bonge la skendo. That's the front page of Taifa Leo, with the photo of Azimio leader Raila Odinga right there. And that particular front page of Taifa Leo, let me see if I can have it real quick here. Ni bonge la skendo. Kiongozi wa Azimio la Umoja wa Kenya Raila Odinga sasa anataka mkataba wa ununuzi wa mafuta baina ya serikali ya Kenya na mataifa mawili ya Kiarabu ufutwe na waliohusika kuchunguzwa na kufutwa kazi serikalini. Mengi ni katika ukurasa wa pili. Odinga asema mpango uagizaji mafuta uliotangazwa na Ruto Aprili ni kashfa iliyochangia gharama ya maisha kupanda. Vidokezo vingine katika gazeti lile hili pale chini. Sikujua binti yangu ni tajiri kupindukia, asema mama Njiri. Bi Pauline Wanjiru Njoroge na miaka 71 ni mamake mfanyabiashara bilionea Njiri ambaye anadai umiliki wa mafuta ya bilioni 17. Kwingineko hapo kando, mbingu za pasuka. Hapo ni balaa tupu kwa wakazi wa Bombolulu Mombasa, ambao wanalazimika kutembea kwenye mafuriko baada ya barabara ya Bombolulu kwa Bulo kufurika jana kufuatia mvua mkubwa unaonyesha kila mahali. Pale juu, Mwangaza sasa unga kaunti ya Meru ivunjwe. Gavana wa Meru Kawira Mwangaza sasa asema anaunga kuvunjwa kwa serikali ya kaunti hiyo baada ya kubainika wawakilishi wa wadi wanapanga kulemaza serikali yake kwa kuondoa mawaziri 12. This reminds me, I mean, we were discussing some of this, the possible outcomes just after Mwangaza was saved by the Senate, and you know, some of the possible outcomes were maybe Mwangaza will be looking forward to dissolving even that particular county assembly, and some of these possible outcomes are starting to we're seeing the fruition of the same right now.
Yes, it is an interesting time in Meru. If at all they don't seem to be mending fences and moving forward from that, it's the only natural progression that they seek a dissolution of the county, they go back and seek a fresh mandate from the county assembly to the governor herself, go back to elections.
Taarifa ya mwisho katika gazeti lile hili, wabunge wa kaidi mahakama waidhinisha ripoti ya kamati kupeleka polisi 1000 Haiti. Lakini taarifa kuu katika gazeti lile hili ni bonge la skendo. Hiyo ni Taifa Leo.
Tuangazie gazeti la Business Daily. IMF rescues Kenya from 300 billion shilling Eurobond scare. Now, these are the details. Lender, we're not talking about grants, the lender approves additional 142.6 billion shillings to Kenya. That means it's a loan. State plans first 45 billion shilling installment in December. So yes, IMF itatusaidia kidogo pale. Payroll taxes register biggest shortfall since COVID-19. This is the other story on the front page, meaning that KRA is collecting less from payee since COVID-19. KPA boss admits one community dominates its workforce. And IFC invests 32 billion shillings in Kenya biofuel project. That's the front page of the Business Daily. I think for those interested in Kenya's monetary situation and fiscal position, that is a paper to go to this morning.
Yes, and on the People Daily, a similar headline to what we've seen in other dailies this morning. Raila to Ruto, come clean on fuel deal. And was it government to government, really? Azimio leader now wants President Ruto to cancel supply contract with 2 Middle East companies, seeks truth on the beneficiaries of pact under which Kenya pays in 180 days after receiving fuel. Yes, and just to quote them there, have Kenyan farms in fuel deal been paying tax? Why is shilling still weak against the dollar? And on the other side, Raila Odinga says, why has the dollar shortage persisted if fuel contract is working? Asks Azimio chief there. And on the top strip of the People Daily this morning, matters floods, and floods have claimed 46 lives, says Red Cross. Away from that, another story there, Azimio to call fresh protest. And that is the story on page 2 of the People Daily. And still on that battle between the opposition and the government, the National Assembly's Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah now wants the ODM leader to prove tax evasion claims. And that is what we have on the People Daily.
Right, and on the Star, a similar headline to that on People Daily. Raila, cartels make Ruto fuel expensive. Odinga says there was never a government-to-government agreement. One that is on pages 4 and 5. It alleges a rip-off. Azimio chief calls President oil dealer scam and demands investigation. On the bottom strip there, or rather the bottom part, the whole center, they're talking about the whole Haiti story, but the Star now focuses on what is really happening in Haiti. And so heated debate as MPs approve Haiti deployment. Haiti is escalating gang violence. They give you quite a number of data there and some facts, a whole map of where Haiti is and neighboring countries and all that. You know, giving you a number of facts, like about 300 gangs are active and 80% of them in the capital. Closest neighbors are Jamaica and Cuba. Capital Port-au-Prince has 3 million people, has a long history of powerful earthquakes. French is the official language. The people practice voodoo, okay? The poorest country in the Caribbean, violence has claimed 1 million lives since January 2023. Those are just some of the data and facts that our Kenyan officers should be armed with even as they're going there. More on that and extensive is on page 8. Now that's the bottom scroll there. Other headlines making it to the Star. Koskei suspension of 6 CEOs, cops, accountants, and police officers lined up for pay rise in Maraga report. And cases of fake academic papers rock Parliament. At the top strip, quite a very interesting story, JKIA mishaps. Is it a case of citizen saboteurs or simply shoddy work? And this reminds me, even the Entebbe airport had to say, this is not our airport. After that, after that particular video showing how JKIA, the roof is really leaking and all that, Entebbe airport had to really say, come out and say, this is not us.
And Kenyans online, I think the biggest problem is that now we've given Uganda an opportunity to berate us and make fun of us. And Kenyans are not happy about that. KOX, if you know what I mean.
But if it really speaks volumes if even Uganda itself has to come out and say that situation is very worse, that can't even be us.
It's just become a regional shame. The other day it was Rwanda, now it's Uganda. Probably the next people will be trolling us will be DR Congo.
Once we get there, we know.
And finally, on the Siasa pullout this Friday, succession wars. Just to read what is politicians positioning themselves as potential. I can't get the other bit there. But you can definitely take a look at that Siasa pullout and get to it. That is the Star. And that's the cue to Uganda now.
Tuvuke border, tuzungumzie maswala ya Uganda. Uganda, in Kampala today, we look at the Daily Monitor, the front page, and you have to be very careful how you read this headline because it starts with Among. Now, Among is someone's name. So, Among slams brakes on agencies' mergers. Speaker of Parliament yesterday asked pertinent questions about the process government was following to rationalize and merge over 24 agencies. And that's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Monitor, big news in Kampala today. Also, they have a very beautiful lady featured on the front page of the Daily Monitor. I don't know if the director has this. They say, Chabazinga wedding to last only 2 hours.
Only 2 hours.
And this has to do with royalty. And she looks like a princess. She must be one.
Probably we should attend this wedding.
She must be a princess. And you see, they've given her half the front page.
Yes.
Yeah. I wish our director could actually beam it up for people to see.
Make our viewers mourning.
She's very beautiful. On the front page of the Daily Monitor. It's rare to see such a thing featuring on our dailies in Kenya. The face of a beauty queen or probably royalty or a princess featuring so prominently on the front page.
We're so used to the oil.
Scandal, Kimeturamba, Kinomana,
Our dailies are just fun.
Top politics.
You wake up on a Friday and you look at the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda and you just feel happy. And you feel, it is Friday.
I'm curious if it was Rwanda.
Well, they're cousins, so... Interesting. Well, that's a Daily Monitor in Uganda.
There you have it.
There you have it, finally. Forget about being among and slamming brakes.
That's the main story.
That is the front page of the Daily Monitor this Friday. People in Uganda are happy. Yeah?
It actually even
That's how you start a Friday.
I think today the newspaper
Look at our headlines.
will really circulate.
Look at our headlines. We're just complaining about corruption and people being filthy rich and
then Njoroge here.
Corruption, loans.
But Uganda gives a different...
You wake up and you find that on the front page of your dailies. You have a beautiful day.
Oh, yes.
You'll buy the daily.
And that's how you start your weekend. Kudos to the Daily Monitor.
We've made our morning. And like here, it's just sad faces. Haiti, Mama Njoroge, Kawira Mwangaza. Oh, my God.
Hopefully Tanzania might change...
Well, Tanzania just have, for lack of a better word, they have a lot of Madhogodhani on the front page. Extra busy today. Anyway, over to you, Flo.
Let's have a look at the Citizen this morning in Tanzania. The headline there, Envoy why EA can be gateway to African economy. And Australia is banking on East Africa as the center of significant economic development in Africa. and has decided to relocate its African Trade Commissioner from Johannesburg to Nairobi. Good news there. Away from that, Denmark reverses decision to close its embassy. And yes, other stories on the Citizen. East Africa exports to rest of the continent hit $9 billion. Yes, and it's World Prematurity Day now deserves UN recognition. Yes, and that is what we have on the Citizen.
Right, katika gazeti la Mwananchi, taarifa za kutatanisha na kuhofisha. Kuu pale RPA sasimulia mipango kumuua muuza madini. Ni Musa aliyeuawa kisha kuporwa shilingi milioni 70 shilingi za Tanzania hizo. RPA sadai alichomwa sindano ya sumu kuzibwa mdomo, pua kwa tambala. Wataja mahakamani wote waliohusika. Kwingineko pale chini, taarifa ya kutatanisha pale na kuhuzunisha, chakula kilivyokatisha uhai wa watoto 6 wa familia moja. Pale kando, muswada sheria za uchaguzi wazua mapya. Na mwishowe tuangalia pale juu, waliokiri kuuza dhahabu ya bilioni 346 shilingi za Tanzania hizo, leseni kulipa fidia 924 milioni. Na hiyo ndio gazeti la Mwananchi. Turejee nchini Kenya. On page 16 is of the Standard, page 16 of the Standard, and page 20 of Daily Nation, and obviously page 10 of People Daily.
I think on the Standard, there's a very scathing attack on the office of the president. This caricature showing that the office of the president is 24/7 open with those fat cats just walking in and out with bundles of money in bags. And I think this is a very bold cartoon to call out corruption in government and how big and fat cats are benefiting from dealing directly with government.
It actually looks like an ATM machine.
This is a very unfortunate,
an ATM machine opened.
Unfortunate state of affairs.
Opened all the time. You can just come and collect as much as you want. Probably deposit and also withdraw.
Either way.
Yes.
Kimeturamba.
Na kimeumana.
Na kimeumana tena. On the Daily Nation?
On the Daily Nation, I go, we all go. That is Flora Limokia's governor saying that.
Are you shouting?
Or a caricature that looks like Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza holding a guitar, the infamous or famous guitar. And well, she's opening a door written Meru County Government, and that's the exit of that particular building. But she's exiting, but those stairs just end there. So again, speaking largely on that whole bit of this possible outcomes.
You know, even
solving the county assembly and also having that particular county government disbanded as well.
Okay.
In relation to that, on the Standard page 10 this morning, I see there are now fresh allegations that this petitioner says here that the vote was conducted on that day that was not gazetted. Session was to end at 11:50 p.m. Remember, they voted past midnight.
Yes, that's a petition before the court.
Yes.
To nullify the decision of the Senate, seeking to nullify the decision of the Senate on a technicality.
Yeah.
So it's still a matter before court. We'll have to wait and see what the court, how the court pronounces itself on that matter.
There's just a lot going on in Meru. On page 10 of the People Daily, interesting cartoon here. And there's this festive season, and there's a caricature of someone who looks like a common mwananchi there and a drug lord. I don't know, why don't I get this cartoon? Fred, help us. It's a drug lord who seems to be injecting.
Well, Stano ametutupa leo.
We are off
Just
the
look
grid.
at it slowly.
But if you ask me, I mean, having to do with matters with the drug lord, right now when you walk around many parts of the country, and even in most urban centers, you'd find the containers of Velo just dropped haphazardly there. So it really has to do with, I mean, even this, the person being injected looks like a young person. I mean, we are talking about, you know, the young people straight out of high school, or even in high school, even in primary school, they're at home for about like 2 months.
Yeah.
So that means they're really susceptible to drug abuse.
Okay.
You know, so some of this, I mean, Velo might look like
Velo,
it's really
like
harmless, but then
e-cigarettes, yeah.
it has its own harmful effects.
Yes. And we'll be getting the youth perspective in a short while as we get down to discuss the dailies and other highlights making big talking points in Kenya today. After the break, State of the Nation Youth Perspective will be hosting Conrad Kea, policy analyst and governance expert, Njeri Kahiga, national youth leader in Nyandarua County, Victor Otieno, youth leader, Pan-African Congress, and Judy Oyo, founder and advocate, Ability Beyond. Do stand by for that conversation. But I was just thinking, you know, there's this popular phrase that we use in East Africa, Hakuna Matata. And if you look at our dailies, I think the only country that is staying true to that should be in Uganda. With that beautiful photo. And I'm still yet to get over it. It has a lot to do with a royal wedding.
So probably
it's a highly anticipated Busoga royal wedding. That is actually the
when is it, by the way?
the wife to the king. Yes.
Is it today?
Not sure if it's today, but there have been a number of court injunctions. It's supposed to be on November 18th in Bugembe, Jinja. That's tomorrow. Yes, so tomorrow, big royal wedding in Uganda. But we thank the Daily Monitor for bringing that beautiful image to us this Friday. I think it has made my day.
So we should make our way to.
We should try and
make our way to Uganda.
For the bus already.
I don't think we're welcome in Uganda right now. Yes, continue sharing your sentiments and interacting with this show online on X at TV47 News, on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. And this is the Morning Cafe with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to get down and discuss the big headlines this morning. We're privileged to have in studio with us a panel of youthful people. Beginning from my immediate left, Njeri Kahiga, National Youth Leader in Nyandarua County. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana. This is not your first time on this panel.
Yes, thank you.
Karibu sana. Next to Njeri, we have Conrad Kea, Public Policy Analyst and Governance Expert. He works with the Youth Bridge Kenya. Conrad, karibu sana.
Thank you.
We also have Judy Oyo, Founder and Advocate Ability Beyond. It's a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you so much.
Last but definitely not least, Victor Otieno, Youth Leader, Pan-African Congress. It's a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you so
much. Ladies and gentlemen, on Fridays we try and get the youth perspective because so many things are discussed at a different level. So many of these headlines, and we wonder, how does it affect the young Kenyan? How do you feel about what is happening? Let's just start from there, generally. On State of the Nation, because the President made his inaugural State of the Nation address before the Houses of Parliament last week. That was the very first time he was delivering that State of the Nation address. Previously has addressed the Houses of Parliament, but not on the delivery of a State of the Nation address. Do you agree generally with what the President said? What is your assessment of where we are as a country?
Thank you so much. On the State of the Nation, I think, first of all, it should be about we as Kenyans. They gave us their manifesto last year as Kenya Kwanza, so he was supposed to tell us within 1 year what have they achieved, what is in the pipeline, what is not in the pipeline so far. But the situation that we found ourselves in as Kenyans is a speech that we cannot even tell whether it's about Kenya, because literally whatever he gave us was just some cooked narratives. Because the moment you come and tell me there are people who are accessing an individual hustler fund of 700,000, and we know very well you told us it's between 500 to 50,000, you are not giving us the correct state of the nation. The moment that you're not talking about the cost of living, which we know is very, very high right now, you're not addressing the problems that Kenyans are facing with the taxes that you have added. Every other morning you are adding taxes, you are overtaxing us. Whether public participation is done or not, you still don't put it into action, because when we check what they did in July, when the finance bill was being passed, they told us we are going to consider what you are going to say, but whatever Wanjiko said was not considered. They still went with what they thought as an executive was okay. We are in a situation whereby as a nation, we no longer even know what goes through the parliament or what does not go through the parliament. We just wake up and find things are happening. You cannot tell me you are addressing the state of the nation when you are going to be a day or two before, you have already infringed my right as a Kenyan. The moment you tell me I'm supposed to be paying for an identity card, you are literally telling me I am paying for you to acknowledge me as a Kenyan of this nation. And as a young person, I hope that in future, because I know he listened to what people say on social media, I know he listened to what the youths are talking back in Mashinani. That State of the Nation was nowhere close to what is happening in Kenya. And me as a youth, I feel very concerned the moment he walks into Parliament and members of Parliament are quiet as he lies to us in broad daylight. And it gets to a point I'm wondering now, if members of Parliament were quiet as he did all this, what about when he comes on top of the cars? What is going to happen? And
a lot has been said about the conduct of this parliament, the 13th parliament, the National Assembly, and how it has conducted itself so far. Do you feel confident that the National Assembly is playing its role as it should? Conrad?
Yeah, thank you. I think we need to really understand that personally, I don't think the parliament is actually doing its mandate. We have leaders who have been, they are going to bed with the executive, and we even the young people whom we actually expected to protect the young people of Kenya, they are the ones who are actually letting the youths down. Because personally, I would think looking at the State of the Nation address from the president, it was nothing short of, like it was a scam, I would say so, because first of all, it didn't have any matters that really touched the young people. There was no clear plan for the young people. And even the members of parliament were not so keen with it to understand. Today, if you asked any member of parliament, I want to just to get any member of parliament, ask him what the president said. They even don't know. And they were there clapping. We actually need to come up with a strategy on how we need to elect leaders, because this parliament is actually letting us down. Yeah, that one I can tell you for free.
And Judy, when it comes to electing leaders, because this is where you come in as a voter, right now we're complaining about the quality of our leadership, especially in the National Assembly. Yet we are aware that at least 7 to 8 million registered voters failed to cast their ballot. Do we have a right to actually blame or call out some of these elected leaders when some of us know that probably we did not exercise our right at the ballot?
When we say that, do we have right? Because for the voters who cast their votes, they have right to say so. For the voters who didn't cast their votes, they have to blame themselves why they didn't. Because it's like our leaders are trying to choreograph something that makes a lot of people not to cast their votes, so that we can lose trust on going to vote, and they can manipulate the voters, the number of voters that are available. Because when a leader comes down to campaign, we no longer see the quality of leadership in them, but we see the huger pocket they're having, or the bigger briefcase that they're coming with. And you find most of the bigger number, the bigger percentage that never voted, those are the same people who are always at the forefront on taking the money or even causing chaos, you see. So we really have the right to just talk on this bad leadership that we are having, but we also need to caution ourselves. During campaign, what were we looking at? Were we looking at who is loyal in the party, who is having the best money so far, who can give us what we want at that time? And we tend to forget that at the end of the day, we'll be looking forward into these guys working. Yeah, you see. Okay. So they don't work because they need to return back their money. And this has become like, anytime you talk to any young politician, the only thing they talk of is how they're gonna look for finances to come and look for the voters. And then at the end of the day, they don't work, they return their money.
It's simply recouping compensation.
They do the compensation. So in Kenya, we don't have leadership, we have give and take away.
Victor, is it that bad? Is there any positive thing that you can actually pick out and say, at least in the last 14 months or so, this has happened and it's positive?
Okay, so this is it needs a very reformed mindset, especially as the youth, because I think at this moment we are at a turning point as a nation, and our turning point needs to be of clear thinking. I always say that once I will always take a side, especially politically, I might lose my clear thinking, especially for our economy now. Because this is a time that we need to really focus on the economy, and I believe that what our president did was just more of a duty, his constitutional duty. So the State of the Nation address was majorly focusing on him talking to us as a norm. But as always, words are there, and they will always try to justify everything. But we just have to stand out and say that at this point as a nation, there's a clear thing or roadmap that we need to design. And when we see at our country has gone through different transitions, especially from the, let me say, as a Pan-African, I will say this, that we've had different transition of development. And at this point, we feel like the economy is forcing us to grow into it. It is not really connecting well with our productivity or our potential as a nation. And that's why our leaders need to have a clear thinking beyond what they can see or they can get, because we gave them that responsibility to represent us and to give us that opportunity to be more able to be productive for our nation. Because if we don't be productive, there's no way we are going to solve the nation of this country. And this is something that needs a very, very critical dimension of thinking, because if you're going to stop at just looking at the leadership, it is not the end. We need to look at all the dimension of our economy, from the business aspect, let me say everybody. If the model was bottom up, then they need to focus on from there, but it has to connect well with what our country has now, and that is the youthful population, which means without us, there's no Kenya, or without us, then I think there's no any way we're going to really build this country in a good way.
Yes. I'm looking at the headlines on our dailies this morning. The Standard Ruto oil deal a scam. Raila wants G2G fuel deal scrapped, calling it a scam. I think it's the Taifa Leo went with a different one, slightly different. Bonge la skendo, yeah? And you ask yourself, whenever we hear of big scandals or claims or allegations of a scandal in the making, it is usually indicative of some bigger problem underlying. This government-to-government oil deal was supposed to come and help us. We'll come back and discuss the issues to do with taxation and IEDs, because I know that is very close to your hearts. But when we see issues to do with a government-to-government deal, when government gets into a business situation and intervenes, especially on importation, let's say issues to do with importation of maize, now importation of oil, there's always a risk of corruption. Are we seeing a return to that, Njeri, that 14 months into this administration, this first major government intervention into a space that is usually occupied by the private sector, and we are seeing a possibility of a mega scandal in the making?
First of all, I'm not so much of an expert when it comes to the petroleum industry, but the small details that I have about this industry, we saw a country like Uganda pull out from they don't want to be dependent on the Kenyan oil government-to-government deal. So if another nation is not confident in us, me as a Kenyan, why should I be confident in a government that other governments are not confident enough? And you know, anytime, whether it's health, whether it's security, whatever is done government to government, we as citizens don't even know how that tender was done. We cannot even properly say the government was the, when tendering is being done, I think the tender is given to the person who gives quality and at the least price. We're not even sure that the government was the most qualified person for this deal. Maybe we have private sectors that would have given us the same quality of petroleum product, but at a cheaper price. We are in a situation where, as a government, everything is revolving about paying our loans. So we are not sure if this deal was done by government to government for them to add whatever they are saying that we have big loans, for them to add some amount in between there to cover some loans. So we are dealing with a situation where I'm not confident in this government as a Kenyan. Secondly, nations outside are already questioning these government-to-government deals. And the moment a president like Museveni is talking about the process of this deal, they don't feel confident in it and they no longer want to be dependent on Kenya, it leaves us with so many questions. What is this that other nations are seeing? What is this that the international community is seeing that we as Kenyans are not ready to discuss? Because you cannot tell me that a neighbor knows your home more than you who lives in that house. So for me, this government deal is a whole scam, just like Baba said. And I want to tell the young people who are out there and the young leaders who are in parliament, you are going to be keeping quiet as this deal goes, because you are getting your cut, or even because you're not even getting your cut, but because you don't want to be seen by your bosses like people who talk too much. But at the end of the day, we are going to always remember you in history as people who took this nation down the drain. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you for a fact, if you check the cost at which we are buying the fuel, there was a time that I heard the president talk about we are no longer going to be using the dollar to purchase this petroleum. And now, honestly,
that was actually the original justification for the government.
It cannot happen.
But if we talk about corruption generally, and still on the conduct of the National Assembly especially, because there are structures that should be able to oversight and question the government's involvement in so many of these dealings. If a government decides to intervene the way it has in the purchase of oil, then houses of parliament and other structures should be able to ensure that whatever deal the government engages in is actually watertight and done according to our laws. But we're seeing a situation where the National Assembly Majority Leader was the first person to actually come out and defend the government yesterday. Yeah. We still rely on one man, Raila Odinga, to expose a scandal. And it's not the first time. He did it even in previous administrations. And everyone else is defending the administration. Do you think that there's something being hidden there?
Personally, I think we need to actually thank heavens and God that Raila Odinga has been our opposition leader. We wouldn't have known some of these deals. He started with the SGR, now we have the oil, and it is very clear that the government should not do business. Governments are not supposed to make profit. If we have any deal that sees a government engage another government, it should be for the interest of the Kenyans, for the interest of the Mwananchi. Because at the end of the day, the deal affects the citizens. And maybe President Ruto had good intentions with this deal, actually using government to government, maybe as a way of engaging and reducing the oil price. That is what we all expected, actually. But it turned out to be the opposite. And President Ruto has been very clear that, in fact, he has stated that some of the companies that are owned by the government should be privatized to increase efficiency. Why are we having an operation where some of the companies are supposed to be privatized, yet some of the businesses that were actually, done by the private sector very well, they delivered. Now they're being taken over by the government.
Hold that thought. We'll come back and discuss that. We are due for a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. We are continuing with this discussion about the youth perspective on matters that are dear to us and are featuring on all the dailies today. Do stand by and continue interacting with us on our social media pages. Studio with Njeri Kahiga, Conrad Kea, Judy Oyo, and Victor Otieno as we continue this discussion. Now, just before the break, Conrad, you were talking and you raised a very pertinent issue about the efficiency of government in engaging in some of this. And the fact of the matter is that even the government itself acknowledges the importance of privatizing some of its functions. And that is what this government is engaging in. And you pointed it out correctly, then questioning why then would the same government opt to be doing business as far as this oil purchase is concerned. Are there real concerns? Do you think that when the government intervenes in such a situation, as opposed to leaving it to private and market forces, that it is more prone to abuse by senior government officials mostly?
Yeah, I think, Fred, thank you for asking. What we should be looking at is who is this messing up some of these deals. The president might be having the best intentions for the country, for having to engage other governments to do business with our government. But now the officials who actually are mandated to go and do the deals are the ones who might be messing up, because we have had incidents where some of those government projects who have been inflated, the prices have been inflated. We even heard of 200 shilling tissue paper in one of the projects in the government. So I would say the president might have good intentions, but it really needs to crack the whip, because the corruption scandals have become too big. And this oil might just turn out to be another one. And Kenyans are losing money. These are taxpayers' money. We really need to hold them accountable. And I'm happy, I have seen in the newspaper some of, he has tried to, some of people have been sent home, some of the CEOs have been sent home due to corruption. Mm-hmm. And this should still go back to even the ministers. We want to see even CSS going home because of corruption. We also want to see PSS who are engaging in these scandalous projects and scandalous businesses. Let them go home, so that Kenyans are actually sure that we are in to save the Kenyans' money, at the same time fight corruption. And these people should not only go home, they should be apprehended, taken to court, and they should serve sentences, so that it serves as an example to other civil servants or other people in power who would want to steal from Kenyans in using these deals. Yes,
and it's interesting you point that out. It features on the front page of the Daily Nation, the first major purge, anti-graft purge by this administration. 6 CEOs have been suspended on various charges, allegations, nothing to do with the oil scam. But it is an indication of the kind of system we have as a government, and indicative of the lack of trust that the Kenyan people have in government operations. Are we therefore right to question the government's involvement when Raila Odinga comes out and says some of these things? Because just looking at X, former Twitter, you can see that quite an army of, what do you call them, bloggers have been unleashed to counter the claims by Raila Odinga. As we speak right now, there's a trending hashtag on saying why Raila is opposed to the G2G deal. Do you think that we are right as a people to question how government is handling this matter?
We have a right to question. And we really have a right to speak loud. Because that was a right that was given to us. And that is something that we really do it right, you see. But most of the time we also have a problem, because we question after everything is wrong, but we don't know how to correct it. It's high time we act. We don't react after everything is messed up, you see. Raila is always there to speak out. He's been a candidate. But we only value him when he speaks out. We only value him when he talks and then somebody contradicts it. But we don't give him a chance to see, like, okay, if we give you a chance as a president in our country, what will be the change? But you're always just there, like, okay, Raila said it, why is Raila not talking? And when we talked about using our currency to buy oil, in Africa we were doing something like we have the United Nation of Africa, so that we can use our own currency. But now it doesn't seem like you're gonna use our own currency, because our money is depreciating. Mm-hmm. And everything that was promised is just running away. So when Raila comes out to speak, we need to make this thing happen. We need also to come out and speak, but we don't need always to come and wait for Raila to come and speak every time. And yet when the time that it comes, when he wants to be a leader, we tell him to go and rest in Bondo. When he decides to rest behind his backyard, we also complain, why is Raila not talking? He has done an handshake. So we are just always there to react, and we are never there to act.
Yeah.
You see, that is why we are being taken advantage of each and every time a government comes in.
Victor, the question is, and as Judy points out, then what? Raila comes out and says, yes, there's something cooking, it needs to be checked. The House of Parliament is reluctant to play its oversight role. Other structures, other institutions that are supposed to check on the government, they're not doing so. And as Kenyans, we're just sitting back and waiting. The same way we waited for Raila to come out. What next?
So that has been a really big issue because, one, the country really lacks a strong monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, which means that we do projects based on a linear approach, like I do this is the end. Also, you realize that when we privatize these institutions, let's say like oil, once we privatize these, like they focus on the profits. So if a government want to engage them once they are private, towards an agreement that I'm focusing on the efficiency, and efficiency means that you have to lay off some workers, you have to focus on my profits. So even other companies that are from the outside the country, the continent, will be like engaging them on business level. But the government will be more of, this we're going to be charging. So the government feel like they want to overtake the private, but which is also very impossible because once you privatize it, it's an agreement. There's no way you can overdo that. So we have a very big commitment, especially this oil scam. It is an issue that, because even now, let me say, for example, in Kenya, we were saying that we wanted to buy with our currency. But realize that the world itself, the global oil supply chain itself works in a petrodollar. You have to earn the dollar so that you buy the oil. But now, see, Kenya, even our currencies now is very like you have to earn it. So earning it is very expensive than buying the oil. Even if we were saying that we could do that, but once you had privatized some, they will still be looking for that. Yeah. So the economy is very imbalanced. The flow is not really efficient. That is why we have a very big issue.
A question, and I think when the EFF leader Julius Malema raised this issue,
yes.
The fact that President William Ruto is among those who are calling for a unitary currency in Africa in the run-up to the elections, and once he became president, he forgot about that completely. I've never heard of him talking about it. Do you think that is part of the problem? That yes. We may have the ideal thinking about what should happen in Africa, but putting it into effect, these other forces come into play very fast and compromise our leaders.
Yeah, exactly. That is now we say that in Africa we have got leaders who are masters of double speak. Yeah, like they speak this one today, tomorrow they speak another thing. So realize that what they say and what they do are totally different. But also our leaders, when they enter into something, we feel like we can correctify this solution, but to get institutions that are already placed. So more of the time we can see that this leader is not doing the right thing. This is okay, we can say that, yeah. But realize that when they step into the shoe of being a president or shoe of being a leader, you realize that there are so many institutions that are like, you have to do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So a leader is going to stand at a point whereby there's a lot of forces, like we want you to do this. This institution is saying this way. So we have a lot of institutions that you have to focus on. But for now, our leaders need to prioritize solving our problem as now, and also even looking into the future. Very important.
If they don't, then what? Because now the problem is we are in a situation where we understand our problems very well. For the very first time, Kenyans understand. We even know how much debt as a country we have. We know who's not doing their job. But the question is, then what? When the institutions that are supposed to check on the government fail to do so, and you as the Kenyan youth are watching things go bad, then what?
First of all, today I'm a very happy Kenyan and a proud one who voted for Baba, because this whole panel is a very woke panel and it feels very encouraging. You can imagine in this whole panel, nobody is here to sugarcoat what the government is doing to us as Kenyans. And that is very, very good, because the moment half of a nation. You can imagine among 4 panelists, nobody is here to tell the government, oh, praise and worship in the government. So you can imagine if elections were to be done again tomorrow morning, what the state of the nation would be. Secondly, we as the young people, we are educated, we know how the government runs. So the moment even a majority leader comes and tells us, no, Raila is just talking, we are there to be able to differentiate listen to Raila, listen if he's saying whatever he's saying for his own self-interest or the interest of we as the young people and we as a nation. And that is where the biggest problem is going to come in this nation. I can tell you, if it's 14 months down the line and Kenyans are this woke, within the next 1 year, even county leaders and MPs will not be able to go to mashinani and lie to the people. It will get to a moment of Kenyans will become very defensive. And if the MPs and the people in the government, governors and everybody else still wants to praise and worship this government, it's going to be chaos in this nation. Because you cannot tell me you are overtaxing me, then I still have to go to my pocket and finance my education 100%. You cannot tell me you are overtaxing me and you still want to increase the cost of NHIF or the social medical fund. You cannot tell me you are overtaxing me and roads in Nyandarua County are still pathetic. As a Kenyan, I feel if you are overtaxing me and I don't have to pay school fees as a university student or as a secondary school student or whatever level of education, I would not have a problem as a Kenyan. But you will not overtax me for me to finance your luxury kind of life.
But the question is, because some of the things that Njeri has mentioned, like even university funding, we come from a history where university students were probably the most proactive in calling for changes and demanding for changes, especially on issues political. Agitation for multi-party democracy. The youth of Kenya were very much in the core of that agitation. Right now we are seeing a more reluctant group of Kenyan youth. Hence my question, then what? You may know the problem, you may feel agitated and angry, but what happens next? That's a question, Conrad.
Fred, you know, something happened in 2009 today. I was reading in the newspapers that this is the day that the draft to the 2020 Constitution was launched, actually, and that is what gave birth to the Constitution. And this Constitution that we have today was supposed to protect the wananchi from manipulation and actually increase the efficiency of the parliament. And it is very sad, absurd, and just unimaginable for a member of parliament who is a majority leader in that case, to actually dismiss some of the claims. The Constitution gives us privileges as citizens, whichever, whether you are Raila Odinga or whether you are a common mwananchi like me, to actually petition the government, petition the National Assembly, and raise issues that are pertinent to the nation. And what the majority leader was supposed to do, the first thing when Honorable Raila raised the issues, he was supposed to either instruct the committee to actually call the CS to Parliament to answer to some of those claims. The press conferences are not necessary at a moment where Kenyans are really suffering. Talking about maybe a disfranchised young generation, the Duale bill that actually scrapped off the election of leaders in the universities to actually choosing of delegates. Then these delegates are normally, maybe I would say, puppets of the administration. They are not very strong enough to actually push an agenda because they do not represent, most of the time, the interests of the students who are the biggest, revolutionaries in the country. The biggest of them, starting with Honorable Duale, starting with Raila Odinga. These are our students, the Migunas of this nation. These were students, and I think it is high time we start to. And the reason why actually that thing was, the bill went through is because the government felt threatened at that time by the young people, how the young people were coming into the political space, how the young people were actually demanding some of the things that have happened today. And when I was in college, I remember one of the most celebrated, one of the most celebrated university leader was Babu Wino. And at that time, I remember I was in college and we had not received help. And we went to the streets. We went to the streets and help was in our pockets the next morning. So if we disfranchise this young generation, young leaders, it means that there's something we're losing. And today, the Babu Owino is a member of parliament. We also expect him, from the leadership he ran in the university, he can be able to escalate the same conversation in parliament, and that is what we want to see. We even have young people, young member of parliament, like the chief whip, Honorable Soro, who went to the ground and he was heckled. That should have been a turning point to him, that, I mean, something is wrong.
Something is wrong somewhere.
Yes.
It's the ability of the Kenyan youth to actually speak up and do something about it. Because yes, we may talk about the Duale bill that boxed university students into a position where they cannot act. So beyond complaining and general anger, what happens after a long period of nothing happening is a lot of lethargy, that people sit back and give up eventually. Is that what we're looking at, Judy? That the Kenyan youth are so hopeless and they have no way of actually demanding for what they know is their right, so eventually we'll just see a hopeless generation?
Young generation are becoming hopeless. That is true. A bigger percentage of young people never voted. Duale destroyed the leadership with this Duale bill in university. I was a student leader after that. Immediately, we had to vote in the system of having a delegate. I tried to oppose that, but it wasn't going to happen because the dean and the administration had spoken, and it has to happen that way. A lot of students had to be manipulated to choose people whom they didn't want to choose, whom they didn't want to elect. But that does not mean also some never got the opportunity to have the ones that they needed. I was the president of Kiriri Women's University at that time. It was hard to go and champion for students in the Senate because at the end of the day, your strength has been taken away right from the government. And you try speaking it and you get to a point where your education is also threatened. We have different kind of leadership. The people who can go out and shout, the people who can sit down and see how we can talk. So when we come into this new generation, we didn't want always to go in the road, because I remember there's a day we start with Osiany, who was former CAS. Yeah. So he told us that, yes, we used to go to the street and then do the demo. But now I feel like now when I'm having my car and see the students coming on the street with stone to come and stone my car, I feel threatened. Mm-hmm. But now we had to see a way to do this without going to the streets. But still the government is still oppressing the youths. So this is something that has been made because they see the strength that was coming from the youths. They see the zeal and the power that the youths were having, and they wanted to look for a way to stop this. So how are they going to stop this? Right from the administration. After stopping this, the students were going to resist from the student leaders to feel like they're not doing their obligations, and they're not putting forward the students' affair to be heard on the table. That was only to create the distrust between the student leaders and the students, and that is going to bring up youths that are not able to speak out because they're already being put in a system where you don't need to speak. We are supposed to elect these leaders for you, and that is something that we should fight against.
Okay, does it mean that we're in a hopeless situation, that we cannot depend on the youth of this country to actually speak out, because power is rarely given, power is taken? And the biggest successes that we've had as a nation, especially on multi-party democracy, it was an agitation, a forceful agitation, where through actions you force the government into some kind of consequence. If at all the youth will sit back hopelessly and say, now so much has happened, nothing else can happen now, then what is the future? What are the solutions? If parliament cannot work and the young people of the country say, okay, fine, we've been boxed we don't have the power. Then what next? Will we just be coming to TV shows and complaining and saying how angry we are, how bad this government is, they've done this, they've done that. What next?
Okay, yeah, so I think we are boxed, but we need to think without the box now, because it's very important for us to move to the next step. And if you can see very well, the box is full of complaints. The box is full of pushing out responsibility. Yeah, the leader saying that you people are the people who need to do this. For example, I'll give an example of the taxation. Yeah, they're saying that, okay, we have to increase the tax base, but the way they do that is increasing overtaxing, which doesn't really go well. Yeah. Also, the leaders are saying that we can't do this without you. Yeah. At the same time, the people they like pressuring to give out much. Yeah, is more of still us. But also as the people you're saying that the leaders need to do something. But also the corporations, which I think we know major of them, like the financial institutions, there also some of them are just operating that as we don't even want to hear anything about the situation, the living standards, we just want to focus on the loans we give out, let them service. So like the government has to do what they agreed on, even if it is 10 years ago, 20 years ago, yeah, they still have to maintain on that. So as the people will say that, okay, we want this, the government to do this. The government will also say that. So we realize that at the end of the day, we are pushing the buttons, but the button is just surrounding us. So we need really to stand at a point whereby the government need to assess themselves. This is not a matter of me going to be an MP and saying that, okay, I want to do this for my people. It is not going to happen, because even now, if you check an MP is complaining that the government, a governor is calling the government, the senator is saying this. So like they are just pushing this button of development to us. And the issue is, our problem as a nation does not even fully or the internal issue of the governance. It is both global and internal. So we need to get away of us youths getting a very wider perspective of what is happening globally, also what is happening internally, so that if you're able to connect the dots and we realize that from there is where our power comes and we're able to change everything. You're
living in the information age. Information about even the level of debt that this country is in is available to the young Kenyans. Getting to know the truth is not really the problem. The youth do know where the problem lies. It is where we go from there. That's the question. Then what?
I think we already know our problems. We already have complained a lot. So what is left is we are going to wait for the whistle. Baba akisema ni kwa barabara, we are going to be there.
We still have to wait for Baba?
Not really. We're not going to wait for him. If he does not go, we are going to go, then he's going to join us at the end of the day. Because where we've gotten right now, demonstrations is the only way this government is going to listen to us. Because you can imagine, Parliament is just like a kitchen. President akisema ni chai ya maziwa, that is what is going to be cooked. Akisema ni kahawa bila sukari, that is what is going to be cooked. So now where we are going to be as a nation, because you are already overtaxing me. You are already taking flights left, right, and center, spending millions and millions, and I'm not seeing the value of that. So what is going to happen? Demonstrations this time, hazitaanza Nairobi. Zitaanza pale mashinani. Because the moment you hear complaints are being done about this national government, the county governments, you know, right now we're not even discussing about how county governments are behaving, whether money is being squandered, because our focus is on this oil deal. But the truth of the matter is, kama wale wakubwa wanaiba, hata pale mashinani, the problem is also there. So what is going to happen? For the longest time, since time immemorial, demonstrations was in Nairobi. But this time we are looking at a situation where utasikia maandamano imeanza Nyeri, imeanza Nyandarua, imeanza Marsabit. Because at the end of the day, if people realize, oh, so when we are within Nairobi, you come and pick those who can do demonstrations, because that is what happens. When the government is aware there's going to be a demonstrations, they pinpoint those who are going to be forefront, pick kina Babu Owino, pick the likes of kina Njeri Kahiga who are here in Nairobi. And then now the whole nation goes quiet. But this time, you can imagine maandamano ikianza mashinani, they cannot lock everybody else in the mashinani. And that is the only way out, by the way.
In a week's time, the National Dialogue Committee will be presenting its report to the President and Raila Odinga. Only yesterday, after close to 90 days, only yesterday or the day before, they came out to say that they had totally disagreed on how to reduce the cost of living. After more than 80 days of deliberations. Now, yesterday we saw Martha Karua another Azimio principal, come out and say that, talk about Maandamano and say that we will go to the streets, back to the streets. But there seems to be a disagreement because Raila Odinga is reluctant to go back to the streets, and even some of his supporters are telling him, do not go back to the street. So what will happen? Question is, because even you had Njeri, and the first suggestion was, if Baba says you go to the street, then we will go. Is that what you're waiting for? The only reason that this bipartisan talks were happening in the first place, and which brought to an end the last Maandamano, was the cost of living. If they fail to disagree, or fail to agree on that one issue, do you see us going back to the streets?
I really want to actually get this conversation away from one man, Raila Amolo Odinga, because he has been there for Kenyans for the longest time possible. As Njeri puts it, I think it is time we put that responsibility on our back as young people so that we protect the integrity. We actually pushes this government, the nation forward. Talking about NADCO, the conversation has been around. I have noted that there's no youth agenda that has been presented on the table for the talks. I mean, no young person has been engaged. They have not listened to the perspective of the young people. And I mean, we have complained too much. And I think it is time we also come up with solutions. And some of the solutions that I think going forward, we need to agree on is that we need to change policies. For the longest time possible, the government has a certain feeling about how to empower young people. It's like the only thing a young person should do is should be carrying a djembe or carrying, those menial works. That is how they look at it as empowering young people. When you go to some of these developed countries, young people are being, trained on digital skills because that is the next generation, That is the powerhouse, that is the big thing. Why are we not coming up with digital academies to train young people and not taking 100,000 young people to NYS so that when they come out, they have rungus and they have djembes and they have shovels. And you say we have empowered 100,000 young people. For real? Is that what we want our young people to do? Is that the only thing? It is okay. The NYS is doing well. It is actually helping Kenyans. But is it the really thing we want to do? It is time we start appreciating meritocracy in Kenya.
Okay. Yeah. When you start hearing our leaders speak, Martha Karua, Raila Odinga, and that disagreement that occurred this past week, it is an indication that probably by the end of the 90 days, chances are that on the issue of cost of living, the National Dialogue Committee may fail to agree. This is happening in the next 1 week, not 1 month, not 1 year. If they do, it will have beaten the purpose for having that dialogue in the first place, which ended the Maandamano. Do you think that the Kenyan youth are ready or capable of reacting to that in any way possible?
One thing I would like to say, I am an Azimio supporter, and I can see my party leader there, Eugene Wamalwa, but I also disagree on some things. We can't have a bipartisan talk, spend our tax in it, and then come out with no solution. Whatever we need to do as Kenyans, return them back to that hall, sit down, and come out with solution. Because they'll go and then they'll come out. And then there's this saga of oil from a young lady who is like his oil is being taken away. And then there's something that needs to be put there so that we can turn our heads and then face somewhere else. The bipartisan talk was supposed to come out with a solution. Was not supposed to come out with Maandamano. Right now, youths are looking for employment. The little employment that you get overtaxed. I am employed. I'm recently going to have my 1 year experience in employment, but I'm seriously taxed. I am disabled and I'm still being taxed because I applied for tax exemption that has not been passed through. I am a young woman, I am a youth, and I am a Kenyan. I pay my tax so that these guys can go and sit down and come out with a fruitful solution, but they come out and tell us that we need to undermine. You see, me with anything to do with maandamano, youths are the ones who are going to face this big challenge, because a lot of youths are doing small business outside there. If I go back in my village in Migori County, a youth is not employed, and then they'll come out and they'll be shot and they'll be dead. How many youths will keep on dying? Because we always have to fight and go out on the streets. Even me, I believe with Malema, if something is wrong, even if it's my party leader. They need to go out and sort this thing. And if they're not going to sort out these things, then we will come out as youths and we will tell the policemen, kindly don't use your guns. Because at the end of the day, these are the same tax they're using to buy the bullets, that they can shoot it to us, you see. So the only thing that I can say is that now, I'm ready for maandamano, but I'm not ready for maandamano now. I'm ready for resolution that will happen to the Kenyan youths who are dying because of high taxation, lack of employment, and lack of decision making after spending a lot of money with doing the dialogue that is not even coming to any solution.
For more than 80 days, the 10-man team agreed on quite a number of things. The cost of living is where they disagree. Are you confident that they can resolve that in the next one?
No, I'm not really confident with that, because let me say, the government, our governance structure, let me say, for example, we have a very broken system of operating. Let me say, for example, Kibaki came, did this part. We feel like he did his part. But realize that when Uhuru came, he also did his part. We consider it his part. But realize that all these things are very connected. Yeah. So if Ruto came, yeah, we thought like you have to introduce new things totally, but he had to still embrace all the challenges and also everything that came with. So realize that the problem is not even, we might be really pushing it also on the leaders. It's very true. They have to be committed to a very pragmatic form of doing things. But you realize that if there was an issue in 2013, it is still which means we need a very clear mapping of our developmental plan. Yeah, as much as Kibaki came with the Vision 2030, today we don't talk about it. Uhuru came with the Big Four agenda. It's not even on the list. Today we are talking bottom up. So these economic models are really not efficient for connecting our economy in a way that they can be appreciating each and every time. So as a country, we need to really rethink in how we model our economy. Yeah, because that's why you say that, okay, you came up with bottom up. My approach is I want to get partners, development partners. You go to IMF, they give you loans, but you pay with higher interest rates, yeah, which you feel like they are helping us, but also in 10 years' time, we'll be again crying. So let's not vote to cry every time, but let's vote to make these people accountable for what they are doing. Because it's very, very important for our economy and our generation to come. Because even now we can be talking, but tomorrow we need another dimension of talking. Because if we're going to be putting Conrad to be the president of the country, yeah, but he's not able to commit and solve a problem of 2013, we'll still make a very big noise.
Let's flip the coin, and probably we've criticized the administration a bit too much. And look at the reality. And the reality is, yes, the country is in a lot of debt. If the country was doing well, then the entire populace enjoys the benefits. If your country is not doing well, then the entire country should carry the burden. Isn't that exactly what this administration is doing, that he says, yes, the situation is very bad. Na kama kuna mzigo, ni mzigo yetu sisi wote. Beba mzigo through taxation, through paying for higher services for government provisions. Is there any other way, Jerry?
There is
we as a country be ready to carry our burden.
There is a president, I'm not sure which country, but it is in Africa recently, has decided to cut all international travels for him, his ministers, and every other government in office. Yeah. He has also cut 50% of what are these called? These allowances, the full allowances of MPs and the officers in his country. So why not Kenya? Because right now, I can tell you for a fact, this budget of 2023-2024, we were seeing the newspaper tell us that in the first quarter, we have already spent 87% of the whole budget. So what are we going to do in the other 2 quarters? We will have to take loans to finance the recurrent budget. And if at all they are going to be willing to do development, because as we speak right now, I don't know of any mega project that is going on. So maybe it's time we get this conversation going. Is it time that we cut salaries of governors, MPs, senators, the president, their travels, we cut them to 50% so that they can also take care of this loan? Because you're not going to tell me, who is an unemployed youth, you are overtaxing me, you don't care where I get that money, but you still expect me to pay taxes. But you, with your million or close to $1 million salary, you have not felt any change, because at the end of the day, you are using our taxes. If you want to take a flight, you are using our taxes. And at the end of the day, it's time, if that nation, I'm not sure. If,
it is Zambia.
Zambia?
Yeah.
If Zambia is doing it, why not Kenya? Mm-hmm. We are looking at a situation where in Kenya today, the president of Kenya visits Kenya to rule. He's ever outside. He visits to rule. So we are talking of international trips that we don't know what they've done. But I heard the government spokesperson, Maura, say that those trips have given us 2 trillion. Maybe that 2 trillion should be minused in our loan, which we know is not true. We need to let them cut down everything by 50%.
Is this what we should be demanding for as Kenyan youth? Because as far as looking for solutions is concerned, as we said, we understand the extent of the problem, we know exactly what the problem is. It is when it comes to solutions that we disagree. That probably we should be demanding for serious austerity measures. That yes, if the situation is that bad, then probably even the housing levy, which appears to us like a very ambitious plan right now, which should be, maybe the government should slow down on it. Is the Kenyan youth aware of the kind of solutions that could be able to remedy our problem?
The Kenyan youth is aware. We are aware of our problems and we are aware of the solutions. And we have presented these solutions to leaders all the time. We have had forums. And I would wish to state it clear that sometimes traveling is not bad. If the president goes out there to actually, it is like a father going out to bring goodies to the house. But at the same time, Fred, if you are a dad and you go out there, you come back home with pockets full, your kids will be happy. But if you come every time with empty promises and telling them, I went out there and you know what, guys, next time I'll still go back there and we shall eat tomorrow. Your kids will even be angry with you. And that is why Kenyans are angry, that while we have instances where the president has succeeded, like the China-Kenya, where there's no visa, the visa-free, it actually helps Kenyan young people who are business people, who are doing business in China. And that is that's a plus. But out of 30-something, only one works, then it means we are losing it. The aspect of spending, actually looking at it very clearly, having looked at the control of budget report, the absorption rate for the development is always less than 30%. But the absorption rate for the recurrent expenditure, which has allowances, it is always 100%, 99%. Why is it so? It is because it is a deliberate, it is a deliberate thing that, let us pay allowances, but let us not fund that road to be constructed. Let us not fund that railway. Let us not fund that hospital. Because the government priorities, we need to now understand what are our priorities. And looking at the Kenyan debt, we understand that maybe the Raja regime, actually left a very big debt. We have been told this time many times, and it is very unfortunate. Even today, yesterday, when the CS was at the JKIA, he was still alluding that you are the CS, work. We cannot be having an airport that is not working, and you're still telling us about how last regime did not take care of this. It is now your responsibility. Go back to work. And I just want to convince the government and actually to tell them that it's time to get back to work. Let us work, number one. Number two, let us prioritize what we can pay. You cannot pay all your debts in your house. You can't wake up and pay all the debts that you have accrued for the last 1 year. You have to plan. The reason why we are having high taxation right now is because President Ruto is committed to clear all the debts in this year, which is not possible. Take Kenyan slow. Let us start with one debt, and then we shall relook so that you also don't, make Kenyans dry at the same time, we are paying debts for who? Whom will you lead? If we die, all of us, because of hunger, whom will you lead?
Judy, is the Kenyan populace ready for a slowdown in development for the sake of ensuring that a fiscal sense of sanity, that if at all our debt commitments are too high, then probably for the next 2-3 years, we put development on the back burner and we focus on that? Do you think that as a population we would be ready for that kind of solution?
As at now, I think we'll be ready because we are at the jaw of, the rope is on our neck and it's nearly choking us. So the government is waiting for us to reach at the moment that we can't breathe and then cuts the rope so that now we can breathe. That is now immediately when we are supposed to be voting, you see. But as at now, we just need to say, like, let's put a stop to some things. Let's work on these. Let's come back on the table. The president started so well when he started giving the visa free within Africa. That was a plus. And I was so much happy. I remember even when that was happening, when he visited
South Africa.
South Africa, later on he visited, was it Senegal? When he visited Senegal, I was in a fellowship in the US, and I told my fellow who was coming from Senegal, do you know that I can come to your country without any visa? And she was so much excited. That was a plus, you see. Can our president just have those meetings with on Zoom? Because like now we have internet. And he said that we are going to have internet in Nairobi. And you see, like, can he just have those so that he can cut the cost? Like, so, because right now our economy is so bad, but the visiting are so huge. Even when Prince came and we had to put a red carpet on the soil, he needs to feel the soil of Kenya. Why should he step on the red carpet? And you see, when we try to look at this point, the government is trying to make us trying to make us choke. Mm-hmm. Because if we can reduce on this, stop the housing levy, because I don't know when we are going to have these houses in the first place. Because he said, the first time I remember when he came to the government with Uhuru Kenyatta, all the youth were going to get job, and so many people went to clear to make sure that they graduate, so that by the time the government gets in, they're ready with their papers. There was no job. Now that youth are trying to survive, now there's a high taxation.
Do you agree, Victor, that it's our own ambition as a country that could be slowing us down? That some of these ambitions we harbor about affordable housing and some of these things could be slowing us down and making us probably not very comfortable as far as our finances are concerned? Okay,
so I think we are speaking in a very contradictory way in terms of long-term strategic plan for the country, also what we have to solve for now. And even for now, we are just like a country that is managing their poverty. I don't see like we are like really looking forward to develop anything, because we are managing ourselves in terms of poverty, our problems, but we don't even think of what will our children really have in place, because I will say for that, even the issue of ID, I wanted just to bring this out clearly, that I know to some extent you might see it as a way that, okay, there is two sides of it. I will say it from my professional viewpoint, that if you put Kenyans that, okay, you have to pay 1,000 to register an ID, most will not afford. And because the government wanted to roll out a digital ID, people will opt for that, which they're feeling free. But even if that is the side that they want us to go, in a secret way, which we might not know, but still, we don't even have enough data centers that will promise us of sovereignty with our data safe. So we really need a very way of looking out, because even now, I will say the youths, for example. In 2019, the government of Uhuru Kenyatta launched Kenya Youth Development Policy. If you check out, it was very good, well to be read, sweet to be heard, But there is no practicality, because policy also only work when there is practicality in it. When there's no practicality, policy will be only sweet to hear, So we need to have a very solution-driven format of thinking, and it should never be on this basis, like we just focus on, Kenya, let's just manage our poverty, this is too much, let's just come and discuss complaints and all these. It has to go beyond that. And that is why we are saying that the government needs to cut a lot on the expenditure, a lot. It needs to go down completely. It is not about them, it's about us, and that is where our sovereignty lies. But looking at it politically, even as we come closer to the end of our show, looking at it politically, no leader who spent his time campaigning would want to come and spend his time
just paying your debts and effect no development, then once you get to 2027, you ask, so umetufanyia nini? Definitely, even for the president, he has to strike a very delicate balance between ensuring fiscal sobriety and ensuring that he has done something tangible for you to see. Do you see his dilemma? Do you see and understand the president's dilemma?
There is no dilemma there, because if you want
even as you make your final comment,
if you want to safeguard your salary, for instance, a governor probably $1 million and a senator around 800,000, then you need to be working. You are in the Senate, you are in the parliament, you are not doing anything, and you still want me to compromise on the help on the NHIF for you to get your salary. You don't want to cut your recurrent budget, but you still want to sit pretty in Senate, in parliament, and you don't want to cut your cost, but you want me to be overtaxed. It's a two-way traffic. They either call this government into accountability, they either hold the president by his horns if he has, and make him work, then we can allow them have their expenditure to whatever they want it to be. But as long as they are not delivering what we sent them to the parliament, to the Senate, to the county government, they should even not be getting their salaries. Let them use their savings, because even Kenyans right now, we are using our savings. We no longer have, we are short of loans, we are short of everything, taxes ziko huko juu. You can't right now even think of education as a priority. I know of so many students in the university who have taken defers to go look for only food. They only want to survive. So if Kenyans are only surviving, why is a parliamentarian living? You saw the other day when we were planting trees. Every CS with a chopper. Taking a chopper from Nairobi to go plant a tree in Nyandarua County, then take a chopper, one tree. Photos are taken. Then he takes another chopper, goes to Mombasa, plant one tree. How much are we using? So if at all these parliamentarians and politicians don't want us to get to a point where now we ask about their salaries. And just as I conclude, the other day that we had the controller of budget say, the budget that she has and the salary she receives and what is articulated in the budget is 3 times what she gets. So if her salary is 100, the budget is indicated 300. So you can imagine the kind of a mess we are. Budget if that is imagine controller of budget can speak out that. So you can imagine what about those other allowances that we don't know about, of somebody traveling, somebody who was sick, somebody who was needing fuel allowances. So as I conclude, I simply want to tell any politician who is going to be listening to us this morning, if at all you don't want to get to a point where you cannot even go to your home back in Nyandarua, where I come from, or back in Kisumu, or back in Mandela, you have to speak in the Senate, you have to speak in the parliament and now say, enough is enough. Mr. President, you are putting us at a very tricky situation. Because I tell you for a fact, the same way he has said, you charge me an ID 1,000, when you come to look for a vote, you will have to give me 10,000. I first take back my 1,000, then now the other 9,000 is for those times that I was suffering. That is where we are taking this nation. So in conclusion, me as Njeri Kahiga, if the governors, MCAs, senators don't want us to cut down the recurrent budget, they need to work. They don't work, they also come to the bracket of to survive pamoja. Okay. Yes.
Conrad, your final remarks.
I will also wish to touch on the matters ID, and the Article 3 of the Constitution is very clear that a Kenyan has a right to some of these documents, passport and ID. Once you actually make that young man or woman not have an ID, he can never do anything. They can never apply for a job. They can never apply for a passport. They can never apply they can never access services. We are seeing 800,000 young men and women who are finishing KCSE coming out. Most of them are 17, 18 to 19 years. Where are we? How do you want them to start their life off? Because if you don't have an ID, literally you can't do anything in Kenya. And I've also seen a report by Honorable Maraga, our former Chief Justice, that has also said that the police has recommended that the age be taken to 21 years instead of the 18 years that has always been there. This still is a way of making young people continue to suffer, because that has been another way of helping people who have gone to school or people who don't have jobs. They will they hire 10,000 police, and that is another way of helping young people. So you can tell me, someone will have to wait until he gets 21. One thing, as I finish, I would wish to actually plead with the government plead with our MPs, our senators, that young people are suffering. As she has said, it will get to a point that even the MPs will not be able to address residents back home because you cannot address a hungry man. And the only way to get out of this is to come back to our senses, come up with policies that can be able to steer the country forward without having to go to maandamano or, right now we have having a BAMB harvest actually. Why can't we plan for the next year?
Okay.
We are also seeing a flood. Let me just finish.
Because of
Thank you. We are having floods right now. Why are we having floods? Because of just we didn't plan well. I mean, we are having droughts. Why are we having floods right now in the same area? Why can't we plan for next year so that by the time we're also having droughts, we have enough water we have so that it can help in agriculture. So I just plead with our leaders, let us come back to senses. We want to support you to lead us. We want to support you as young people to deliver, but please, get back to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Judy and Victor, you have about a minute each.
Oh my God, that is too of you. Okay, the first thing that I would say is that the development that the MPs or who are making are quite not in good shape, because now we have Kiambu market that is being constructed. You see 2 women. What are they doing there? It takes like a month, something that should take few months will take the entire year. Just give an example with the TRM road. Something that was supposed to take even 2 weeks, it took 4 months. And Sakaja was the one who stood there. And then that shows how bad governance we are having. And then when you come and look at the rate of tax that has been implanted to Kenyans, which is quite high, and there's no increase in salary. That is something that at least Ruto should see what to do in. And when we also come, look at Niger, they decided to change their country, you see, and they said that our gold would remain with us, a gold that was being sold at a very cheaper price. And then they go to know that these people have been stealing from us and they have to pay for it. Our gold is agriculture. We have the agriculture, and the agriculture is being killed each and every day. And we get to import products back to Kenya. This is something that Ruto should see something to do with. Our president should come out and bring out our gold, which is the agriculture, and make it work. And we should make sure that as he does that, even if it's blocking other countries from bringing their products in, he should do that, because Niger, a young person did that, who was a youth. A young person in Kenya can do that. We have militaries who are youths, and we have youths down here. Let's join forces and come out and say that this is enough.
Finally, Victor. Very briefly.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so one thing I would really say is that we have a country to keep. Also, we have our sovereignty that really comes first. But these are times that really need to look into ourselves, because I don't see anything that the country has apart from ourselves. And ourselves really need to focus on what you can give. Yeah, I think when it comes to the issue of development, it's both a mindset issue. It starts from the bottom, every bottom there. Yeah, people have to have a certain narrative or a mindset that is connecting well with what they are doing, also how best they can contribute to the economy. Our leaders need to reshuffle their mindset in a way that it's not about what they think is best for us, but it's about how best they can integrate us into their own leadership styles. Yeah, so that is my opinion on how best we can put an halt to so many of our challenges. But one thing I want to say and finish with is that the whole world, we are the only people who have potential to grow, Africa and Kenya, because we are youthful, young, and full of energy, and we have a very promising future. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Victor Otieno, Youth Leader, Pan-African Congress. Judy Oyo, founder and advocate Ability Beyond. Conrad Kea, public policy analyst and governance expert with the Youth Bridge Kenya. And Jerika Higa, national youth leader in Nyandarua County. Thank you so much for being part of this panel today and helping us discuss the issues that are very dear to Kenyans. Now let's go straight to the editorial comment this morning on matters to do with what is happening in Meru. It is barely a week since Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza survived a second impeachment in less than 11 months. But even before the dust settles, petitioners are already seeking to paralyze the county executive by pushing for the impeachment of 12 of the governor's executive officers. This latest push is an indication of the reluctance by the Meru County leadership to mend fences, signaling a continuation of the bad blood between the county executive and the county assembly. This relentless struggle for power not only continues to disrupt governance, but also jeopardizes the fundamental rights of the Meru people to effective leadership and development. This cycle of political upheaval undermines the essence of democracy and the principles of devolution. It is no wonder that a separate group of petitioners is already collecting signatures to back their call for the dissolution of the county. Indeed, Article 192 of the Constitution provides for the suspension of a county government in instances where such strife obstructs progress and compromises the welfare of the citizens. This option of last resort would prompt a by-election where the entire county leadership returns to the ballot to seek a fresh mandate. As painful as it may be, this provision should not be seen as a defeat of democracy, but as a necessary avenue towards restoring stability and providing the people with an opportunity to elect leaders capable of collaboration and coherent governance. Question is, how different would it be if the same leaders found themselves re-elected through a forced by-election into the very same offices they occupy today? Yet, the madness must stop. The citizens of Meru deserve a functioning government, not a theatrical display of discord and division. If dissolution of the county is the only way to go, then so be it. And that is a TV47 editorial comment this morning.